throw them in a pile and split them and share.
We're hot. Good evening and welcome to our council meeting. We're going to get started this afternoon, tonight, with our invocation that will be led by Councilman Reeves, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Councilman Craig. If you would, please stand with me.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for all the opportunities we have to serve you, Father. And we don't take those lightly, and we don't take lightly service as citizens of this community. Please guide us and direct us and give us wisdom throughout the evening to make good decisions, and always in honoring you, Father. And Father, we thank you for the blood that was shed on that cross to take care of our sins, Father. And this that bless us throughout the night. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, we're going to set the agenda at this time. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to, Mr. Huff makes the motion, second by Ms. Harris. All in favor? Motion passes. We have 7 items on the consent agenda. Any questions there? We'll need a motion for that. Mr. Meadows, second by Mr. Craig. All in favor? That motion passes. Okay, we're going to go into our presentations now. So we have a presentation from the Mount Holly Community Development Foundation, Ms. Benfield.
I'm going to ask our Vice Chair, Jeff Lee, and our Treasurer, Christy Reeves, to join us tonight. She keeps all the money. As a nonprofit organization, the Mount Holly Community Development Foundation is proud to partner with various organizations within the city. We value the city's collaboration on the greenways, conservation deck, $3,000, a small donation for the Mount Holly Fire Department of $22.31. And we have the partnership, the most latest partnership, which was the Art Crosswalk, where we helped collaborate on the prep work done for the crosswalk on Rankin of $2,000. So all of these total, if you haven't been keeping up, $10,832.50. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
She'll hand the money off.
Okay.
I'm not allowed to.
She'll get it to someone. Okay.
I'm not allowed to.
She'll get it to someone. Thank you, Ms. Benfield and the foundation. We appreciate all you guys do and continue to do. I think Ms. Reeves is going to come up.
He's going to present the money.
Give it to that guy. Presentations is an update on the 2018 Strategic Vision Plan. Mr. Beal.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Going back to the retreat, going back to the council retreat in February, this was something that was out in front of council. It's been out in front of council for quite some time. These plans, typically vision plans, it mentions the date that long-range projects will continue through 2028, maybe longer, but on average 10 to 12 years. We're not required to have a strategic vision plan, which is a community-based plan, a visioning concept, which was first saw in 2003 as part of the vision process. That's when visionary planner, who has since passed away, consultant came in, Ron Morgan, and the city invested $30,000 in that plan. Take it back to 2003, downtown was largely boarded up and vacant. We had broken concrete sidewalks, overhead power lines. Nothing like the investment we've seen today from the private business sector. In 2008, it was deemed that we had a lot of growth pressures. Development left and right. There were 2,000 homes proposed. As you know, we got hit hard in 05, 06, right before the recession. So one thing, the goal of that plan was to focus on design guidelines for builders that keep the cookie cutter houses from taking over. Of course, the project team was Community Design Studio, UNC Charlotte Urban Institute, and Warren and Associates that did the market studies. So we used that plan, which was an award-winning plan, to gain $2.4 million in direct and indirect grant funding for greenways, for preservation of conservation land, even to help fund some recycling programs back in 08. So out of the 61 goals in that plan, 49 got accomplished, 10 were in progress, and 2 were not completed. Some of these had high price tags on them, and some of them didn't make a lot of sense, but it was a community-based process. Some of them, for instance, one of the big things that stand out was Piedmont Avenue right behind us would build it to buy Clariant, demolish everything, which they're a large employer, large taxpayer, and build a bridge over the railroad track to access their property. Well, you could just drive, through here. So $10 million bridge working with CSX, it just didn't make a lot of sense, but it still was included in the plan. If you noticed that, they had that whole area planned as a future park amenity. Now, what did the city decide to do instead of that? We focused on Tuckasegee Park expansion, and that was about a $1.5 million project. The city got a $500,000 Part F grant. So when you go into Tuck Park, as you all know, everything on the right wasn't there. It was all woods. So added the multi-sports field, or the complex next door, multi-purpose, that's what I was looking for. The dog park, the skate park. So some of these goals were just pivoted to other things. So in 2017, the city decided it's time to do 10 years. It's time to do a strategic vision plan update around these 6 core values, which came through from community-based studies and surveys. Preserve and enhance small town character, continue to connect the downtown core, improve connections throughout the city, increase vibrancy through art and placemaking, enhance greenways and first impressions, advance the legacy of visionary leadership. So those were the goals, broken down into 8 chapters. Chapter 8 is really important because it's the implementation plan, has 111 goals, and this was some of the maps, is really enhance the downtown core, create first impressions as you come into the city. And I think you've seen that take shape over the last several years. The implementation plan calls for a community call to action. It's intended to create public-private partnerships. The city can't do everything, can't fund everything. How can we work together with our community organizations? So the most important thing, it really urges the city to celebrate accomplishments when they're done. And so here's the goals, and won't read all through these, but short term, it talks about time frames, it talks about what goals have been completed, but you look, you got 44. So out of the 111, we broke these down, 44 completed, about 40%, 16 in progress, 51 goals, or 45% remaining. Really have something focused. I'm going to pull that up in a second. But additionally, there are 20 years of project milestones, sound policy decisions, and other important undertakings that have become decisions with our council that really haven't been documented. And so taking all those goals, I'll pull up in a second, and really getting those documented for history's sake. Pull this up just to really show you the city accomplishments first. Again, you have these in your packet, packets, public records. So there are, going back to 2001, just like when was the ABC board established and why? When was the TDA established? When was the downtown development manual? We were going to have, CVS Pharmacy was going to bulldoze half our downtown, if you remember. And we wouldn't have a downtown now. This council before them, put a moratorium in place and paid $30,000 to do a downtown development manual that's still in use today. So documenting these things, and we have some ideas at staff level, and this is really just to get city council feedback and direction, but there was 106 in 20 couple years that were major milestones. Passing a density credit ordinance, approving a $75 million development on the river with Pendler, are just a few. So transfer that over to the strategic vision plan gallery. And just for the public's sake and those in attendance, if you back out to the main Welcome to Mount Holly page, you go under departments and GIS mapping right here under planning. That will give you to our ArcGIS hub site. Beth Ann Weinbarger is, she maintains this. She's our GIS technician. So there's all sorts of useful maps about public art, about flood risk comparisons, about brownfield story maps and how those properties were redeveloped in partnership with the state. But if you click on the strategic vision plan, it's going to bring you up to a summary. If you want to look at gallery, accomplished goals, all those are right there. And there's several photos that document all these with like the Woodlawn Mill design. I just talked with the developer for the Woodlawn Mill, and they're closing out the Greer Mill project, which was a $42 million investment in Greer, South Carolina. But the Woodlawn Mill is their next project, $17 million investment, and they will be ready to submit construction plans very soon, within the next few weeks. So all these are documented on the hub site. And with that, I'll turn the floor back over to you, Mayor. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Bill? Comments? Mr. Meadows?
First, I want to thank staff for this continued effort over decades, and I know you've been involved, Craig Beal, directly involved in this. I just want to start with saying thank you. But one of the questions that's being asked here, how many years did we lose to COVID?
We probably lost a good 2 years, and in that time, we got some policy decisions, but it was very hard to bring projects forward to council during that time.
So from a professional planner standpoint, at what point do you think that the current plan probably ought to be updated?
It says 2028 in the plan, but that would add 2 years, so 2030. So would be appropriate, but following that 10 to 12-year guidance.
Okay, Mr. Meadows?
So you mentioned it was a community plan. Could you talk a little bit about who was talked to and what information was gathered and how that was done?
Certainly.
Maybe what some of those statistics look like?
Yeah, certainly. In the introduction, it lays out how many meetings. There was various meetings, but I know that the consultant started in July of 2017, spent several months doing background research and getting a lay of the land because this was their first project in Mount Holly. Very well-respected group out of Greenville, South Carolina, Arnett Muldrow and Associates. In October 2017, that's when a lot of meetings, so any downtown or business owner overall in Mount Holly received one. We typically met in this building. But then the surveys that went out, and not everybody who completed a survey lived in Mount Holly. Some owned businesses or maybe disconnected from Mount Holly physically, but they owned a business here or they were involved in some nonprofit. So there were multiple hundreds of touch points throughout the process.
Mr. Huff?
No, I really just wanted to focus and vision of following through on documents and projects like this. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Meadows?
How would you rate the community involvement and feedback from your consultants over time as far as how our community was engaged and how they participated?
With the vision plan, now, take you comparative. I think comparatively, it would be good to point out that 2020, we were in the midst of our comprehensive land use plan, which is actually required by state law, that you have a comprehensive land use plan. COVID hit, we had to go virtually. So that process was impacted. We still got a lot of participation, various opportunities, because that plan took nearly dead, but they're documented in the back. And they just raved about, you know, all the groups that just wanted the best for Mount Holly. And we're trying to find, may have different opinions on how to get there, but they were all at the table, the ones who cared the most.
Mr. Meadows?
So, Mr. Blanton, you've worked at, at least 3 or 4 other different municipalities as city manager and internship in that. What has your experience been here in Mount Holly with the strategic vision plan and the policy directives that it provides?
Absolutely. As council will recall, in November of 2023, I interviewed with everyone up here, less Mr. Reeves, for the position of city manager, and I complimented the city's effort. Having served as city manager of Hamlet, North Carolina for 3 years, Ranlow, North Carolina for 4 years, I can tell you that they did not have this forward-thinking approach to their future. When I arrived in Ranlow, they had not engaged in any type of comprehensive land usage plans, which were, of course, required at the time under 160D. There was no visionary plans that were put into place. If council will recall, when I sat in this room 18 months ago, I commended all of you and prior councils for the work that was put into this. This is a roadmap for a successful city manager. It is a plan that is adopted by our city council based on input that gives very specific direction on how the council would like to see goals and objectives achieved, which all of you have heard me say that many times. The role of the manager is to further the goals and objectives set by council, and having a document such as this and other plans that we have. We have a very comprehensive park plan. Mr. Bill alluded to our comprehensive land usage plan. The city has been very thoughtful over the past years, and it is my opinion that it has proved to be successful and has certainly given clear direction to me as your city manager on projects and initiatives that this council would like to see based on feedback that's been given from the public. Living document, of course, able to be amended as council sees fit, but as Mr. Bill indicated, and again, thank you, Greg, for being here with this presentation, we have accomplished so much together. I'm proud of what we've done the last 18 months and certainly proud of the accomplishments that Mr. Bill outlined tonight. Maybe a bit lengthier than you wanted, Mr. Meadows.
Mr. Meadows, you good? Mr. Bill, thank you for all your hard work and dedication to this city. Are you 20 years in?
24.
24? Wow, that does kind of date us, doesn't it? So, but thank you for all that you've done. We appreciate it.
And we'll be in touch with the city accomplishments. We're looking at ways to create a document to where it can be available for public consumption. Looking through all those minutes, you know, is quite time-consuming, dozens of hours a week, but it's here, and we have a good basis for that. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, next on our presentations is consideration of 131 South Main Street, request for proposals. Mr. Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Tonight I'm standing before you to give you an update on 131 South Main and the recent request for proposals that the city issued a few months ago. This is, I believe, the third time that I've stood before you to talk about this project, how we got to where we are, and what we're doing here tonight. So I want to take just a moment for the audience's sake, for those listening at home, and a refresher to council to talk about how we got here tonight. This is a process that's been going on for quite some time, at least since the fall of 2022, when council appointed the Old City Hall Committee. And that first goal that the Old City Hall Committee had was communication, and that's exactly what we're doing here tonight, and that's why I think it's important to talk about how we got to where we are here this evening. So I want to start by talking about the upset bid process. As council will recall, earlier this year, the council declined to sell 131 South Main Street to the Historical Society. This was under North Carolina General Statute 160A-279. This would have been a statutory mechanism that the council could have utilized to sell 131 South Main Street to the Historical Society at appraised value. That appraised value at the time was $355,000. At the time, council decided to list this property a couple of weeks later with Mecca Realty, which we did. We received several offers for the property, one being from Mr. Vargas for $500,000, which I'll be talking about in a moment, RTR Management for $500,000, and council eventually accepted the Abram Scott offer, I will call it, from Charlotte. That amount was $762,500. That was an offer that we received on February 28th. Council accepted that subject to the upset bid process. We initiated the upset bid process on March 10th, and on March 24th, the Mount Holly Historical Society was the only upset bid that we received. That was in an amount of $815,000. No other qualified bids were brought at the conclusion of that upset bid process. Council reviewed this at the 8th, and we move forward with looking at North Carolina General Statute 158.7-1. Council ended the upset bid process, rejected all of the offers that we had received, and instead looked at a different statutory mechanism, that being 158.7-1. On April 28th, Council designated 131 South Main Street under this statute, and they approved a request for proposals. From April 29th until May 29th, we advertised that RFP and we accepted proposals. That RFP closed on the 29th of May, and we received 3 proposals, one from the Muni, which is the Abram Scott offer that I spoke to a few moments ago, J&M Holdings, that being Mr. Vargas, the first offer that we received on 131 South Main Street earlier on in the upset bid process, and from RTR Property Management. Staff reviewed these proposals, and on June 9th, Council gave direction to present these proposals at the June work session, which is what we're doing here tonight, in that spirit of being transparent, communication, and allowing the public and any interested stakeholders to know what is going on. I want to talk a bit about the goals of this proposal. I spoke a few minutes ago about the first goal of the Old City Hall Committee, and that was communication, but there were 4 more. The second was to activate the top and bottom floor of 131 South Main Street. The third goal was to keep the Historical Society intact to the extent possible. And the fourth and fifth goal both related to assessing and repairing what needed to be done to make 131 South Main habitable. The goals for the request for proposals were tailored based on those goals and based on direction that Council had given over the past 6 months. I won't go through all of these, but in an overview, it was to preserve the historical and architectural integrity of the structure, which relates back to those initial goals that we talked about with the Old City Hall Committee, reactivating the building, getting the most use out of that building, generated from 131 South Main Street, as well as catalyzing nearby investment and attracting pedestrian activity to what is already a very active, busy, and successful downtown, and looking the financial stability of any person that was interested in putting a proposal together for us to consider, as well as ensuring that this is feasible, responsible. Option of this RFP a couple of months ago. I want to talk a little bit about just what exactly North Carolina General Statute 158.7-1 is. It is a commonly used mechanism for the surplus of real property. It is an economic development tool that allows a public entity to dispose of publicly owned property through negotiation. Other cities utilize this quite commonly. Our economic development director used this in his prior position in the city of Monroe, was reviewing some other cities and towns that have utilized this. Whispering Pines, Midland, Smithfield, Iredell County, Ayden have all utilized this in recent years. There are certain advantages, very good advantages for utilizing this tool. It gives the city flexibility to look at things other than price. When Council ended the upset bid process a couple months ago, there was a discussion regarding having more control and say about what actually goes in the building, not looking at the bottom line, how much we're going to get to this, but putting restrictions on this or being specific with what we would like to see put into this building. This is 158.7-1 gives us just that leeway. It also creates jobs. We must create jobs under this statute in order to utilize it. It has to grow the existing tax base, which again is a goal and objective that's been talked about for quite some time, and it can relate to the city's long-term plans and goals, as Mr. Bill just talked about. We can tie the sale of the property, this property or any property that the city owns, to the city's long-term plans and goals in order to ensure that the city gets, the council gets what we want for this particular site. So as I said, we designated earlier this year, we submitted the RFQ, and where we are now is the presentation of these proposals to our city. That we are on with this process is to negotiate terms of a final deal, call for a public hearing to discuss any type of developmental agreement that may be reached, which encompasses any type of feedback, mutually agreed upon terms that the council and the eventual buyer may have, and then to execute a final sale for agreement of purchase and sale consideration. So we are in in that review and negotiate part right now. We are here tonight to talk about these proposals, and I am going to do just that and jump into that. We received 3 proposals, one being from the Muni, that was in the amount of $762,500, J&M Holding in the amount of $500,000, and RTR Property Management in the amount of $600,000. All of these proposals were received during the window of time. They were timely. They were received by the time the RFP was due back in May. So a review committee was put together. I appointed members of that committee to review that. That committee was appointed by me. It consisted of our Assistant City Manager, Brian DuPont, our Planning Director, Greg Beal, our City Engineer, John Ford, and our Director of Economic Development, Matt Black. They reviewed all of these proposals at length. Council had those findings before you. They were, the goal that I emphasized from the beginning of this process is that I wanted the committee to be neutral. I wanted them to be fair, and I did emphasize, and this is a question I've received quite a bit, that price should not be the only indicator taken into consideration, given the fact that council ended upset bid because they wanted to look at things other than price. The committee did an excellent job thoroughly vetting these proposals with the following factors taken into consideration. Relative experience. Does the person that's presenting this proposal have experience doing what we're looking for? Can they correlate this project, the goals and objectives that the council wish to see? What is the proposed use and downtown vision alignment? Again, the statute allows just that. We can correlate the sale of this property to the city's visions, to goals that we have, and ensure that the person that's submitting the proposal does just that. What is the proposed approach? How do they intend to do what they say that they're going to do in their submission process? What are their qualifications? Have they worked other places before? What are their credentials? Are they working with engineers, architects? What is the thought process behind this? And most importantly, do they have the financial capacity to actually do what they said that they are going to do? So this is a weighted system that was adopted by council in the RFP that was released. This is similar to other approaches that the city has done in the past. This is not without precedent. We have many times evaluated RFPs based on a tiered structure, and these are are the considerations that were taken into consideration. So in summary, as I said, we had 3 proposals. The Muni was the our friends out of Charlotte, Scott Abrams' offer that I alluded to. We discussed a lot about them over the past few months because, as I said, they initiated the upset bid process a couple months ago. They proposed a co-working and creative space. This would have been offices, studios, podcast spaces, and an event and community space. They were also looking at artist and maker space, which correlated to, of course, increasing vibrancy through art and placemaking, one of our core values. They were looking at art showcases, rear access, maintained, and demoing to address certain concerns regarding to the environmental issues that we've talked about at length. RTR Property Management proposed a mixed-use project with an anchor restaurant, residential units to be provided for on the top floor of 131 South Main, and office or tenant or a mix. This proposal consisted of office suites and possible restaurant kitchen expansion, egress with adjacent property, that being the old jail area, that being 129 South Main Street, the annex area, and also exploring adding a staircase to the main floor. The last proposal being J&M Holdings. We're also proposing a mixed-use project which would have retail on the main floor, professional offices above, and flex and light commercial space below. They proposed having a flex space for wellness, e-commerce, distribution, and trades. Architect, they cited that their architect would address egress and code compliance with building code, fire code, and asbestos remediation plan was in place. These are an overview of these particular proposals. All of these proposals, and I want to underscore that, I can't say that enough. Council, we have been very fortunate to get 3 very good proposals. The council adopted this process. This process has worked successfully to this point. We have been able to put a very thorough, very detailed RFP, and the private sector has responded with 3 very good proposals. These proposals were thoughtful, they aligned with our vision plan, and they gave us more control with what we can have go into 131 South Main as opposed to the upset bid process. I say all that to say we did let the process play out, and this was an evaluation of the scores. As you can see, very competitive, very close. All of these excellent proposals that in and of themselves would be an excellent addition to our downtown if council wished to continue to pursue this project. As you can see, RTR Property Management was the leading scorer under this process, and I want to talk a little bit about why that is. These are some of the rationale that the committee cited. The first is a local expertise and proven track record. As you all know, RTR Property Management owns a considerable amount of property downtown, over 22,000 square feet, has demonstrated a deep understanding of the local market. And if you go back to those goals that I was talking about, it goes towards reactive the building with commercial, residential, or mixed-use function. It ties in directly to one of the goals from the RFP. Secondly is a thoughtful mixed-use plan. That is something that the RFP called for, a good variety of different uses for the building, putting an emphasis on vibrancy, jobs. The proposal from RTR would estimates to create $1.8 million in job creation on the low end. There is proposed somewhere around the 70 job mark proposed under this proposal that would go into 131 South Main. So 70 jobs that would be proposed, so that checks the box for the thoughtful mixed-use plan. And of course, the historical preservation and building integrity. That's something that's been important to this council, that's been important to the community, that we preserve the historical nature of that building. RTR demonstrated a commitment to that, experience doing that, and again, put that in their RFP. And financial and development readiness. RTR proposed $2.5 million to be invested in this building. That is more than was proposed under the other two proposals that we received. One of those proposals was less than $1 million that they pledged to utilize in this building to renovate it, and another one of the proposals was 1.9. So RTR by far was the person pledged to commit the most amount of money to renovate this building, bringing in a restaurant, which of course has a ripple effect as it pertains to not only property taxes with this building, but also sales tax, ABC revenue, somewhere around low end, potentially up to $10,000 in additional revenue outside property value, depending on the eventual use of the building. This is the rationale that was utilized that the committee gave. Again, it checks the majority of the goals that we have talked about for quite some time now. And the conclusion from the committee was, as I said, all of these proposals offered unique, strong strengths and would be a great addition to our downtown, but RTR Property Management aligned with the city's priorities of, again, local reinvestment, economic vitality, and downtown cohesion. The selection of this team will ensure a successful and impactful reuse of 131 South Main that supports a long-term vision for Mount Holly. I do just want to take a moment to thank Mr. DuPont, Mr. Beal, Mr. Ford, and Mr. Black for participating in this process with remaining neutral and fair throughout the evaluation of all these proposals. It was not an easy task, but one that I greatly appreciate them undertaking. As I said, these are good quality proposals, and I'm very proud of what the committee has proposed. But I want to go back to the last few goals of that old City Hall committee that we had, and that was to keep the Historical Society intact to the extent possible and to assess and repair 131 South Main. With the relocation of the museum, as a reminder, on March 1st, 2024, the City Council voted to move forward with a design with Creech and Associates in the amount of $68,000 to relocate the museum from 131 South Main Street to here in the municipal complex. Creech and Associate has done a very thorough and excellent job putting together a proposal that they have worked on for well over a year. That proposal was tailored specifically to the needs of Mount Holly, specifically to the museum, and specifically to the direction that was given. At the conclusion of those designs, Council moved forward with approving MC Moore for the initial demolition. That was done earlier this year in the amount of $94,449. Upon the conclusion of the initial demolition, we put out another RFP in order to solicit services for the final construction. Council awarded that to Penix. That full construction cost, that $786,834 is the amount that totals MC Moore and Penix. Penix was approximately $684,000 for the full cost of that construction. So they are under contract to have the upfitting completed by September 30th, 2025. As you can see, there's a dumpster beside the municipal complex. They started work last week. They've been here each day. They have been working diligently in order to meet that timeline. That is the proposals that council has before you. Mr. Mayor, I am happy to discuss any of these issues at length, speak to the rationale of the committee, or answer any questions that council may have this evening.
Any questions for Mr. Blanton? Mr. Meadows?
I'd like to move approval of the
Okay.
city recommendation to go with RTR.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Meadows, second by Mr. Huff for approval. Any discussion? Mr. Reeves?
Okay. Mr. Blanton, could you put back up that page with the expense
Yes, sir.
we've spent so far? It was that last page you had up with the total expense. That one, yeah. Okay, that one, okay. Some of my concerns as city council, I've looked at these numbers and I've run them through my head. And originally, the upset bid was turned down, and I just want to make this disclaimer. The proposals we've got are great. I mean, no doubt. They've done an excellent job. Nothing against any of these proposals, but I have a concern with taxpayer dollars, okay? You can do the math. Okay, the other concern I have is turning down the high bid. What that did is it stopped the city from receiving $815,000, okay? It also put forward the fact that we were going to have to move them now, okay, which are these figures. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Councilman Reeves.
So, that being said, if we would have took the $815,000, we would not be spending these taxpayer dollars, okay? That's where I'm concerned. And I'm just voicing these concerns because they need to be voiced, not for any political reason myself, and it has nothing to do with anybody on this council other than I'm concerned spending these taxpayer dollars, okay? One of the other concerns was that we have to generate tax revenue from this building, okay? Well, I looked a little bit into that, and I can't figure all of the things that would figure into it, but just using the tax rate, which is 40.5 cents, okay? I'm trying to keep on the mic so you can hear me. And using the taxable figure, which is 809, what was it, 809 something? 809,570 is the tax value on that property, and that figure comes from the same thing they use to value your home and the taxes you pay on it. And I guess what concerns me is the tax increases, not because we've raised taxes, but because the reevaluation has hit us all in the pocketbook. And what's happened here in my eyes, and I'm speaking for myself as a taxpayer, that we did not take that high bid and take that money. That would have been an advancement on tax revenue based on today's figures of 200 years or more. You can check the figures, because I've run them around. So that's $3,250 in tax revenue on that building right now if it was on a tax roll. And if you divide that into $815,000, that's about 200 years of tax revenue up front. So that's my biggest concern of where we are. It has nothing to do with what people want to do. I understand economic development. I understand what it does and generates jobs and everything like that. But I have a concern that that's on the taxpayer's back at this time. It doesn't fit in my head good as a taxpayer. And I just needed to bring that to your attention because it's there and it's real. None of these numbers are fabricated. I didn't make these up. I got them off the tax. So. Thank you.
Ms. Harris?
Well, I keep going back to the money too, and I know it was said it's not about the money, it's not personal, but in January, I keep going back to the words of some council members that we need to get as much money for this building as we can get. Put it out on the open market and get as much money as we can get, and we've turned down a lot of money. And the point system, I'm not throwing the staff under the bus, but maybe we need to revisit that because OMB was the same point system, is that correct? Is that correct?
That's correct, Councilwoman
Okay.
Harris, yes. Similar.
And so we picked OMB, and Muddy River may have been second or third, I don't know. But if anybody was at Muddy River Saturday, they're running circles around OMB. OMB's not going to be ready by December. There's no way. So maybe we need to revisit that point system too. But that's my thing, is the money.
Mr. Meadows?
So first, I'd like to thank staff. They've conducted a thorough and independent review outside of the politics. We have outstanding staff with an unapproachable integrity. They've provided professional expertise and years of experience in this evaluation. I value the staff input that we get. Professionals that we have that work here are top-notch. They do a very good job. I would like to address the proposer's track record and the benefits of this proposal. They have been a pioneer in our central business district. They bought when nobody else would and rehabbed and brought in high-quality tenants, and they've held onto the properties. We've had a couple that have come, bought, turned profits, and walked away. So we have a long-term property owner here that has invested and brought high-quality spaces with an excellent mix of uses and businesses to date. He's added controlled property or controlled parking spaces that he's given to the city for us to have for all of our businesses, not just a single business. The recommended proposal brings the greatest value. It's a mix of uses that will be open at about 70 hours a week versus what we have now, which is about 3 hours a week. This will draw people downtown. It creates 70 or so jobs. The value of these jobs is about $1.8 million. It brings property tax value, sales tax, and potential ABC revenue. The guesstimate on those, because we don't know exactly what it'll be, about $25,000 a year that will be brought in. So this proposal also has demonstrated a high level of citizen support. We had about 40 folks come in and speak in favor of this process, plus a very strong survey that was done of the community in a day's time, had over 120 people sign up that said they want us to go this way. The one-time capital from the sale will offset the cost of designing and upfitting the move to the new museum. So if you take the 815, you subtract 600, you got about 215. So long-term, in at least 10 years, we'll get back the investment that we've made, possibly more. The approach represents what I would call compound interest, not simple interest. The collective impact is a solid community investment, and I'd like to see us move forward with this proposal.
Mr. Meadows, and it was seconded by Mr. Huff to move forward with this.
My only comment would be that thank you, staff, for the process and everything that you guys went through. It's definitely appreciated. And staff recommendation, nothing's 100%, but 99% of the time, I'm going to go with staff recommendation, especially if it makes sense. And that's what I have to say.
Mr. Meadows?
I do have one question for the proposer, just so we get this out on the public record. Could you address what happened to the remnants of the jail? Where are they? What happened to them?
Yes, come up, Mr. Rick.
I'm sorry.
Yes, it's been asked to me a couple times about the old jail. Everything that was taken out or taken down in the old jail is still in the old jail. There was a couple of the old steel toilets that the Historical Society may have ended up with. I'm not sure. We had them sitting out back. Somebody asked one of my guys for them one day, and then one or two of them were, I think they went there, I believe. But anyway, the rest of this stuff is still in the old jail. Been, waiting on the right opportunity maybe to figure out what to do with those. None of that stuff was disposed of.
Mr. Meadows?
One other question for staff, though. So in this process, what happens if the negotiation with Mr. Rick fails?
The next step would be to begin the process to direct the city attorney to move forward with starting this negotiation process. The council would have the ultimate say as to whether an agreement, a developmental agreement, or a contract is put into place. Given council's direction, if this motion does pass here tonight, we will work through the city attorney with RTR Property Management. And for those of you watching at home and here tonight, that was Mr. Billy Rick. He is with RTR Property Management. If negotiations fail, we would come back to council for direction on if you would like to pursue either of the other two proposals that were given this evening or to seek direction.
Thank you.
All right, so your motion is basically to negotiate terms and going through our attorneys?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any other comments before we vote? Again, we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Meadows, second by Mr. Huff. All in favor to move forward with this, raise your hand. So we've got Mr. Meadows, Mr. Craig, and Mr. Huff voting yes. All against, Ms. Harris and Mr. Reeves. Motion passes. All right, moving on. New business, our city manager report. Mr. Blanton is hurrying up here to the desk, so we'll hear from him. Thank you, Mr. Blanton, for your.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, ladies and gentlemen, members of the public. I do have a few things that I want to share with you tonight. I believe Mrs. Reeves is still here, but I want to thank the Mount Holly Community Development Foundation, not only for tonight, but the fantastic partnership that they have shown the city of Mount Holly. Their fingerprints are all over so many of our plans and so many of the projects that we touch. This $10,000 is just a small drop in the bucket to the wonderful things that they have done for the city over the years and continue to do for the city. So, Christy, thank you guys so much for that, and certainly a huge amount of thanks to President Julie Benfield and Vice Chair Mr. Jeff Lee for being here this evening. Also, I did want to take a moment to brag on the wonderful things that happened this weekend at Muddy River. If you were there, it was a sight to be seen. A couple weeks ago, we honored Robbie and Caroline for the fantastic amount of effort that they have put into that project, and Saturday was a true testament to that. From 11 until when? 10?
10 o'clock, yes.
11, 12 hours. They showcased everything that makes Mount Holly so great by being able to be in such a historic building, the oldest standing mill here in Gaston County, from the food trucks to the live music with David Childers. It was a wonderful event. So I know we took an opportunity to thank them a couple weeks ago, but I wanted to again underscore what a fantastic job they did, and thank those council members and members of the public that attended and supported Robbie and Caroline. Coming up this week, we will have our fireworks celebration. On Thursday night, we will kick things off at 6 p.m. with Coming Up Brass, and our fireworks celebration will start shortly thereafter. We're hoping to have everything up and going, included by 10. So certainly encourage everyone to come out, enjoy a good time in downtown Mount Holly on Thursday evening. And on that same note, city offices will be closed for the 4th of July next Friday, but there will be no delay in residential garbage pickup. Our garbage guys will be out and about picking up trash and ensuring that we continue those services going forward. So certainly encourage everyone to have a safe 4th of July. It's going to be very hot this week. Certainly encourage everyone to take appropriate precautions with a heat advisory and enjoy time with your friends and family next week. In case you had not noticed, we have a lot of things going on here in Mount Holly. If you've been downtown, you will see that our streets department, our public works department, has been working diligently with the downtown paving project, moving forward with South Main, some of the abutting streets, in order to get that project concluded. The Trouse parking lot was milled last week. We're moving forward with getting that paved as well. So we certainly appreciate our contractors' efforts and the patience of all of our downtown business owners as we have moved forward with this long-awaited project. Our next meeting will be on July 14th, so we've got a few weeks between now and then. A lot's going on between now and then. I would note that we are not going to have a work session in July, and that on July 19th, we will be having the Mount Holly Sports Hall of Fame here at the Municipal Complex. If you'd like tickets, we certainly encourage you to join us and join our friends with the Athletic Association as we celebrate that. And just two more things, Mr. Mayor. First, as has been said at length here tonight, I do want to take another opportunity to thank Greg Beal for the excellent work that he has done over the past few weeks and the last 20-some-odd years putting together an overview based on council's direction. I know that there was some negativity expressed at the last meeting, but I would like to further underscore that Mr. Beal does an excellent job, is very responsive, and brings over 24 years of experience to the city of Mount Holly. So, Greg, I know your eyes may still be bleeding from digging through those minutes, but thank you for what you did to get that presentation presentation prepared tonight and the stellar, fantastic planning department that you lead and we have. We are fortunate here. Councilman Meadows asked me a few minutes ago about the strategic vision plan. That would not be possible without the direction, first and foremost, of this council, but because of our qualified, exemplary staff that we have to further those goals, objectives, ordinance, and zoning regulations out. So thank you, Greg, and thank you to the department that is here tonight. And lastly, last week, one of our own was recognized by North Carolina Rural Water Association for an Administrative Excellence Award. Mr. Robbie Stewart, our Assistant Public Works Director over our Utilities Department, was honored by the North Carolina Rural Water Association, so we certainly want to commend and thank Mr. Stewart for that fantastic statewide achievement. So thank you, Robbie, and thank you to everything that your team does for our Utilities Department here in Mount Holly. That is all that I have tonight, Mr. Mayor, but glad to answer any questions or concerns of the council.
Any questions for our city manager? All right, we're going to go into our closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318, 11A, 3, and 5. So I need a motion to go into our closed session. Mr. Huff, second by Mr. Craig. All in favor? We are now in closed session.